Has there ever been a time when you wanted to tell someone something, but the topic was awkward to address, so you never did? Maybe it wasn't the right time or the right place, or it would have been too uncomfortable of a conversation. It was easier to just stay silent. Now flip the question. Has there ever been a time when you heard something secondhand and it was more upsetting than if the person had told you directly? We run into those types of situations all the time. In our relationships, in our life, and of course, at work. Communication is hard, and having honest conversations isn't easy. But most of the time, it's not circumstances that get in the way of being open. It's our internal machinations, our assumptions, our emotions. Those are the things that stop us.
We regularly get calls and emails sharing that individuals had fierce conversations and it saved their marriage. They had a conversation with their 16-year-old daughter they didn't think they could ever have. They rekindled a relationship or had a conversation they'd been putting off for a decade. So this just need to connect at a deeper level and build a relationship. It's a human need. We just have to help people get out of their own way.
That's Stacey Engle, president of Fierce Conversations. Stacey's job is to help business leaders have honest dialogues between themselves, their colleagues, and their employees. And it's something she practices every day within Fierce. Every operation that goes into building a business matters, but they all start with one thing, a conversation. And as Stacey shares today, it's conversations, especially the ones you aren't having, that matter most. There are always exciting things happening in the world of small business. The news that grabs the headlines, though, are always the highlights, the overnight successes, the billion-dollar IPOs, the massive exits. But just like your Instagram feed, that's never the whole story. Let's look deeper than the headlines and the press photos. Underneath all of that is the real work building something valuable and lasting. Don't get me wrong, I love crazy success stories and can be drawn into those big flashy tales just as much as the next person. But we all know that what's more important than the destination is how you get there. It's the struggles you have to overcome and the insights you learn along the way that make you who you are. So those are the stories we're telling. It's raw, it's honest, and maybe it's exactly what you need to hear. I'm Hillary Georgie, and this is The Journey. Growing up as a military brat, Stacey has been a driven, adventure-seeking individual since before she could walk.
I was born in Guam. My father was a naval officer, so we moved every 2 years growing up. So exploring and adventuring was always key in my life. But what I wanted to be, I always loved the idea of being a teacher. I really loved learning and experiencing new things through books and through meeting new people.
Stacey and her family moved frequently until she was 18. And these weren't just moves around the corner or across town. They were from country to country or state to state. It might sound like a hard life, and it did have its ups and downs. But for Stacey, meeting new people and experiencing new things was her way of life. And it was a life that she loved.
I ended up moving to Seattle to go to the University of Washington. And although my love for teaching and ideas never really changed, I loved and was super interested in the idea of marketing. So that really led me on a path to going to business school.
While she was attending school, Stacey started working at a private commercial real estate company. It was demanding, rewarding work, and the experience helped her start to see all of the opportunities offered by a life in the business world.
That was an amazing experience because I really did every job from administration to research and eventually helping with sales and marketing efforts. That kind of gave me a taste for the world of business.
She really enjoyed her job in real estate, but a familiar itch had returned. After a lifetime of seeing new places and meeting new people, she was craving more adventure.
I actually felt that going down that corporate journey in commercial real estate wasn't the path for me. And after I graduated, I actually had an amazing opportunity to develop and run a study abroad program with the University of Washington and entities in Greece. I did that for a year, but I had to pinch myself often because essentially I was helping create these transformational experiences for students and seeing that students who stepped off the plane in Greece weren't the same students when they stepped back into the US. It just unleashed a whole side of my interest in how you could connect transformational experiences, learning to the business world. I've been very, very focused on people, helping people from the standpoint of what are they wanting to achieve or do? And I realized on a real level that business done well allows you to connect what people need to products and services.
Stacey loved meeting and helping people, a fact that had been true her whole life. But now, she began to see how she could connect business opportunities with this existing personal passion.
After Greece, I came back to Seattle and I ended up working as a freelancer for like 6 or 9 months. And I started working with a headhunter because I really, although I didn't know anything about the learning and training space, I knew that there were so many amazing things happening in Seattle. And the opportunity for a contract position with this tiny 6-person company was put on my plate. And before I knew it, I completely fell in love with Fierce Conversations.
Fierce combines relationship building with business to create leadership training programs that aim to improve the way people communicate with each other.
To put it simply, we're a training company that's focused on core conversations people have every single day in the workplace. So feedback, coaching, confronting. So we teach these core conversations frameworks. What's even more important that we teach is a mindset that we're really navigating our lives one conversation at a time. And when you're aware of that, the missing conversations become a lot more costly. So our mission is to transform the conversations central to our clients' success.
Fierce was the perfect fit for Stacey, but joining a growing startup is never smooth sailing. And as soon as she was brought on, Stacey immediately had to tackle her first challenge.
What is often true for so many small businesses is just one of the biggest initial challenges was that most of our business came from our founder, Susan Scott. So that's a good thing. And it's not a scalable thing. We needed to build a brand and we needed to share stories of how our clients were essentially having difficult conversations, taking what we teach, which is how to have better conversations, into their workplaces. So the initial challenge was really building from scratch more and more of the brand and the mechanism to get the word out. And there are obviously tons of challenges with that, but we've always been very committed to the path of growing Fierce because to this day, 10 years later, we've still only scratched the surface of what's possible.
So what is possible for Fierce Conversations, for Stacey, and for communication in general? After the break, Stacey shares why every conversation matters, how that philosophy is key to her leadership style, and what it means to be fierce.
It takes a lot to grow a business, but one thing's for certain. You've got to have a laser focus on the customer. That's why we use Salesforce Essentials at Mission every day. With Essentials, your small business has access to the same CRM tools driving results for some of the most successful companies on earth. Think Adidas, Amazon, T-Mobile, Toyota, Intuit, Marriott, and tens of thousands more. Track your business health by measuring sales, emails, customer satisfaction, and custom metrics. Go to essentials.salesforce.com to start your 2-week trial today.
Stacey is the president of Fierce Conversations, a company that helps teach leaders how to have honest conversations in their organizations. And according to Stacey, the first step to real honesty starts with one person, you.
The conversation that's most important is the one with self, and understanding that my opinion matters and that it can be extremely valuable and impact lives and the success of individuals or companies. So I think just starting there, I have no doubt that a huge part of my ability to grow my career is not getting in my own way. And I wasn't afraid to speak up and have conversations necessary, even the uncomfortable ones. And I've found that the uncomfortable ones have really set me apart. When you say nothing about issues, the issues will never resolve. So whether a coworker makes you miserable or a boss steals your ideas or whatever the circumstances are, it's so much more costly to not have the conversation.
No one likes to have uncomfortable conversations, but it's the uncomfortable conversations that often matter the most in your organization. They help keep you and your team humble, stop issues before they become chronic, and audit processes that could be more efficient. And as a business leader, Stacey practices what she preaches every day.
As a small business, you have to just be extremely disciplined with every single resource you have, which includes people. My role is really to ensure that we have the right people and resources and to support and coach our leaders and teams. Given that we're in the leadership space, it's always that existential, are we living what we teach? So I recently launched this initiative with Fierce as Lab. So this idea that we must absolutely, as individuals at Fierce, live and lead fiercely, which what that means is that as a leader of a small company, I absolutely am rolling up my sleeves and leading by example.
But living fiercely is easier said than done. It usually requires that organizations shed cultural norms that their employees have picked up over the course of their lives and careers.
You have to recognize that you're navigating your life and your company one conversation at a time. So sometimes we're just not as intentional about the conversations, or we think it's acceptable that we just wait until tomorrow to have that conversation. Or what's worse, which we see in a lot of companies, is what we call a culture of nice. I think the number one thing is do not make compromises for yourself or for others of what you can handle. So it may seem nice that you don't want to tell someone something that's not working, or it's difficult to share that something is bothering you. However, those issues are going to persist whether you address them or not. So just engaging and not making compromises and being willing to have the conversation is the number one thing, because the missing conversations are the most costly in marriages, in companies.
It's the things that don't get said that can be the most costly to your relationships. And that's a lesson we all need to be reminded of. Becoming a better communicator, a better leader, and a better conversationalist is a lifelong journey and a path we travel down a little further every day with every new interaction.
I just believe that everyone is a mentor and I can learn from everyone. And that means I'm meeting with lots of different people inside of our company, outside of our company, and making sure that I have people who will actually be open and honest and challenge me. I've always believed that a title and a job description are just a starting point. They're not a box. Well, I'm always growing. Like we were talking about with the business, there's never true arrival. I think that's very true. For leaders, it's a dangerous place if you think you've arrived. The advice I have is just put yourself out there, volunteer to get exposure and learn. And that doesn't matter if you're a first-time leader or a senior leader. It applies.
By now, you know that conversations matter, and you know why. But what exactly is the definition of a fierce conversation? Back to Stacey.
There are 4 objectives of a fierce conversation. One is to interrogate reality. So this idea that my job as a leader is to not be right with my ideas. I must constantly be understanding the different perspectives in the company to ensure that I'm getting it right, not going into mode of being right for the company. The second is provoke learning. So as a leader, I continually strive to learn from others, to learn where I may have my own shortfalls individually, but also how I can help create learning experiences for others. The third is tackle our toughest challenges. So the idea that we have so many things on our plate, but we must make sure that we're focused on the right ones and that we're actively addressing them. And then the fourth is enrich relationship. So as a leader, relationships are my most valuable currency. And I need to be intentional and make sure that I'm creating those relationships. And, we do that one conversation at a time.
Interrogate reality, provoke learning, tackle the toughest challenges, and enrich relationships. Being honest and addressing issues directly isn't an open invitation to air your grievances. Conversations, especially difficult conversations, shouldn't be personally targeting. Instead, they should have an outcome in mind. From a military brat to a company president, Stacey has worked hard to make genuine connections with those around her, having all the tough conversations necessary along the way. In Honesty, the Final Frontier, Ken Dahl writes, quote, brutal inner honesty, the three scariest words on the planet, and yet, at the same time, the very key that unlocks all the doors. Honesty with yourself and with others is hard. It's scary and it's uncomfortable. But it's also rewarding and it can be invigorating. And it's always exactly what your business and your relationships need.
Succeeding as a startup, solo founder, or any small business is an uphill battle. It takes the right mindset and the right tools. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Salesforce Essentials to bring you the journey. Managing one podcast, let alone a whole media studio, is a challenge to say the least. But Essentials makes it easy to maintain relationships and grow our business. With Essentials, your startup has access to the same CRM driving insights and results for the most successful companies in the world. Use unrivaled Salesforce technology to track customers, sales, emails, and more. You'll know where your business is and where it's headed as you chart the path for your journey. We love using Essentials, and we know you will too. Go to essentials.salesforce.com to start your 2-week trial today.